perspective, particularly landing.
So here they come in from the left, a very nice three-ship formation, the Jet Provost T5 and the two Vampires. The early Jet Provost T1s, and there used to be, of course, one on the airshow circuit for many years with Kennett Aviation. They still own it at North Weald. A very different looking beast from the later marks, the 3, 4 and 5 onwards particularly, because of the very stalky undercarriage it used to have.
Yes, some fairly wobbly little affair it was, I think.
It was indeed, not least because they used to operate them off grass runways in the 50s, and I gather that the occasional breakage was not unknown.
And I think it was also retracted pneumatically rather than hydraulically.
The first major production variant of the Jet Provost was the Mark III, which had a more powerful version of the Viper engine. It also added ejector seats, strengthened the wings, and gave it tip tanks for additional fuel. That came into use in 1959, and the first all-jet training course graduated in 1960. The T3A had upgraded avionics. The T4, again, a bit more power. There's steady development all the way through to the Mark V we see here.
Yes, the T4 was actually the nicest of the lot because it was so lightweight. It was the same weight as the 3, but it got 2,500 pounds of thrust. The 3, for many reasons, was known as the constant thrust variable noise hairdryer.
And it was rather ironic, given, as you say, how nice it was to fly. The Mark IV ended up in its last RAF, guys, just being used to train air traffic controllers out of Shawbury.
Yes, and we had a pair at Broady doing forward air controller training as well.
Yes, of course you did, yes.
That's a very nice formation.
The Mark V we see here, developed from the outset by the British Aircraft Corporation. They gave it a pressurised cockpit to allow training at higher altitudes. Once again, the Viper engine was uprated and the wings strengthened. The RAF took 110 of these. They came into service in September 1969 and carried on until September 1993. So 25 years ago this month, when the turboprop Shorts Tucano took over. The last two operators, numbers 6 and 1, flying training schools respectively at Finningley and Linton-on-Ouse. But behind the Jet Provost as they run in now, as I say, the very beautiful de Havilland Vampire, the RAF's second frontline operational jet.
Originally known as the spider crab, for some reason or other.
Yes, possibly to do with the rather unusual configuration, as well, of course, due to the limitations of the early jet engines.
Yes, they were very concerned with the early jet engines about frictional losses of thrust in long jet pipes, which is why de Havilland went for this configuration, so they could have a short jet pipe. Of course, in the Meteor, the engines in the wings gave a short jet pipe automatically.
That engine was developed by Frank Halford, de Havilland's engine man, as the Halford H1 before it became a de Havilland product as the Goblin, because de Havilland, of course, developed and built engines as well as airframes.
And of course it was a pair of H1s that powered the first prototype Meteor.
Yes, indeed, because other power plants were delayed.
We're not ready.
Interesting method of construction for the Vampire, as we see the pair of them breaking away from the Jet Provost. De Havilland, of course, had a lot of experience of building wooden aircraft. The Mosquito springs most readily to mind. And so the structure of the Vampire mixed wood and metal. And the fuselage pod has a balsa wood core with layers of birch veneer inside and outside. But the wings, the tail booms and the tail are all metal.
And there was reputedly at least one aircraft in the RAF that was redlined for woodworm.
It looked to me an absolutely lovely machine to fly on, the Vampire. Would you concur?
Yes, it is. It's a delight. It's got manual control controls throughout, so you've got no powered controls, but they're quite light. The two-seaters are a little cramped. Originally it didn't have ejection seats, but I think it was the Navy who said they weren't going to take it without ejection seats, and the Air Force eventually followed suit. But with the ejection seats, it's very matey inside the two-seater. The single-seater is an absolute delight. It's a lovely aeroplane. Beautiful view out of it.
And we've got examples of both here. The two-seater is a T-55, which is equivalent to the RAF's T-11. The single-seater is an FB-6 fighter bomber. Both of these are actually ex-Swiss Air Force aircraft, operated in Norway and in RAF markings.
I think that was done specially for this year.
It was indeed, yes. The Norwegian Air Force Historical Squadron, fabulous supporters of the British Airshow circuit. Norway, one of the many overseas countries who bought the Vampire, and they've put them into RAF markings. The ones on the two-seater, which I think is leading the formation, are number 4 Squadron markings. They flew Vampires as part of the British Air Forces of occupation in Germany post-war, and the single-seater is in number 72 Squadron colours. They flew Vampires from Odium and North Weald, and the Norwegian connection with North Weald is very important to them because they were so